Round 3 of the GT3 World Challenge here at RCI TV, about ready to kick off this week in Italy. And this is the leader of the practice session right here that we are watching go around the track. Tico Vandervelde and his number 66 Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo, currently the fastest man on the track. Until Samir Foch just upset him just a moment ago, not to dissuade Foch, as he did actually take a couple leaderboard now, like glance up at it. Going to be a very close race. We were expecting Heat to be dominating, have a dominating performance again this week. However, all three Heat drivers not on the grid today. We also have Honzik feeling a little ill. George Boothby and Malinowski have prior commitments for an esports race, so massive implications for points here at the Friday Championship for round 3. Plenty of rounds to go though after this one, and it's going to be an exciting finish, or an exciting middle of the season to really watch these points fluctuate. Hello everyone, my name is Mike Jones. Welcome to RCI TV, round 3, as I said, of the Friday Championship. Here is Samir Foch, the current leader, took over from Tico Vandervelde. Alongside with me in the comments box is, of course, Benjamin Stewie Heilman, behind the cameras, giving us all of these fantastic camera angles through the race, and Jesse Lee alongside me, who I would not have anybody else commentate with me.
Well, hello, Mike Jones, Stewie, and everybody at home, wherever you are this Friday evening. Hope you're well, and we thank you for joining us on a Friday evening for round 3 of the Friday Champ. And yes, the big elephant that's not really in the room this week is George Boothby isn't here. 2 weeks of dominance are going to fall by the wayside. The big question that we're all having right now, Mike, who is going to rise to the occasion and take over the championship lead?
Yeah, I mean, the championship lead is very much up for debate at this point. Of course, Caracas in the 119 has done very well through the season. However, the McLaren 720S not necessarily the strongest at Misano here. So will he struggle a little bit in comparison to, Foch and the Ferrari who's up top, Tico Vandervelde and the Mercedes, and of course the Bentley, which was such a dominating car here before the new BOP came in. Verstappen currently in P7, but keep in mind this is the practice session. The track's still actually not even on optimum grip yet, because there was some moisture in the air a little bit ago, so grip still being laid down before we get into the qualifying session. Maybe not everybody has went down and really shown what they can do for their hot laps during the practice session as well. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in qualifying, and I think that's going to be very telling for the race, is to see what these guys can do for qualifying. Because the thing is you really need to be in the top 10 here at Misano to get a fantastic, consistent finish. This is a short track, only about a minute 30 to a minute 35 lap time, and it's something that is not necessarily the easiest track to pass at. It is nice and wide, but there's so many corners that are you miss the apex, you've got to go so slow through the corners that it can be difficult to pass here. So if we don't see people in the top 10 in qualifying, Jesse, I feel like they're going to be struggling during the race.
Yeah, right you are. I can't disagree with that at all. But yesterday, we were also at Misano for the GT4 series. You could almost call it a support series in that way, that we were here a day ago. Saw something I don't think I had ever seen. For Zidlow, who qualified on pole for race 1, was shuffled back to outside the top 5, and it took him 19 minutes thereabout, 18 to 19 minutes, but he got all the way back to the front and won that race. It took him nearly the entire race to get back to the front, so I absolutely agree with that statement. If you want a shot to win today, better qualify inside the top 10. Practice just about done and dusted. Qualifying on deck here as the track continues to rubber up in the dry conditions, but it seems to be, Mike, giving a lot of these drivers fits all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it did not give Tinko a fit, though, right at the end. He went over and took that first place away from Foshkin at the end of the practice session. He wanted to provide that initial gauntlet thrown down before qualifying even starts. But we were watching Joe McCauley in his Lexus slide off the track. And as we switch over to the qualifying session, we're actually seeing a little bit more sun come out. However, it looks like it has been raining in between the sessions, as the track is in green instead of fast. That means This will be a rush out to get as much grip down as possible out on the track. And the end of the qualifying session is really where we fast laps go. But speaking of Joe McCauley, Jesse Lee, a mid-season entry into the Friday Championship. He hasn't been here in a little while. He actually hasn't driven in a few months on ACC or most sim racing for the most part over the past few months, but decided he wanted to make his comeback and come join us for the Friday Championship. So good to see him on the grid in his Lexus, and it'll be interesting to see how he does on his return race. He was not overly confident about it, but in the end, it is Joe McCauley, and aliens are going to be aliens, right?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting to see Joe come back. We welcome Macaulay back with open arms, and of course, we will see just how fast he is. They say it's like riding a bike, and I think we'll take a lot of notes tonight to see if maybe that's true. Joe becoming sort of a test subject on that matter, but also talk about mid-season signups. We used to not allow that here at RCI. It's one of the more new changes, the RCI 2.0, if you will, and mid-season signups are sort of allowed now. Joe decided to come back, and we'll see just how good it can be. Qualifying underway, and I don't expect anybody to come down pit road. I think they're all going to stay, unless you ditch the car somewhere. I think you're going to stay out on track the entire time. This track, folks, is going to go from green to all the way to rubbered in probably in these 10 minutes. We've got that many cars. I feel like we'll get there. And you don't want to be the one car that doesn't have A, laps, and B, heat the tires at the end of this session when it potentially goes optimal. So I'm pretty sure everyone, in addition to fighting for space, is also going to be staying out there, keeping the heat tires, trying to get everything out of it. And Savalainen, first on the road here, is going to give us our first look, first crack at a fast time.
And you can see the sun interfering with him coming through the corners. The sunset is coming here in about 30 minutes. Sim time happens around 8:30 or so here in Italy. And you can see just coming through every single right-hander, he's having a struggle with that sun all the way through Sector 1, Sector 2, making sure that he's got to be on the lookout in front of him to hit his apexes and get as far as possible down on the loud pedal as he's coming out. Very curious to see how this really works out for him, as it looks like it's been a pretty steady lap, but has it been too steady? From what we've seen from the qualifying sessions in the past two races, it's not the steady laps that have won. It's these guys driving on the absolute edge, almost sliding through some of the corners that end up getting them the pole position up at the top, because that's how competitive qualifying session is. But we're going to find out what the lap is here. If it's in the 33s or low 34s, it should be pretty decent. He's going to come across the line. It's going to be a mid 34. That's definitely not going to be the top end of the grid when it comes to the end of the qualifying session, but not a bad little start, as we do see multiple people slot in behind him. And of course, Tinko Vandervelde, who was our practice winner in the end of things, just ahead of Samir Foch, sets the fastest time before Caracas upsets him as well. Jesse, these McLaren 720 might have something to say during the qualifying session. They didn't look amazingly in practice, but Caracas, he knows the Boothby isn't here. He wants to chase that lead, and he's going to give it everything he's got today. But these Mercedes still looking pretty strong, as I expected.
Yeah, Mercedes looking good, taking second and third. And talk about Caracas, who I didn't see at a particularly quick time in practice, comes out here and throws it down in qualifying, a 34.185. Dare I say it, will we see a 133 at the end of this session? I think it is very much a possibility. And Tinko Vandervelde at 37/100ths off of that time. Absolutely nothing in it. That is the difference between, I don't know, a fraction of a second on the brakes or this.
Ooh.
Max Wajna going big style over the curb and losing it a little bit, sliding the car out. And that's going to force a reset. Not what you want, but silver lining, you still have half the session. You should be able to get back out there, run a few laps, and who knows, at the end, it might be an advantage. Savalainen responds on the fast racetrack, a 33.870 Arjuna Savalainen going to reset as well, taking the opportunity. It almost looks like everyone coming in at the halfway mark thereabout. That might be the right call. What about Jubel? Do they have a fast lap in the suck from the M4? They do have a quicker lap up to 6th place.
Yeah, and of course the track did tick over to fast, which means that we are going to have faster and faster laps as we go through here. We're watching the leaderboard just light up green pretty much everywhere. These guys are taking the opportunities, the exact opposite as you predicted, Jesse, to come back in, reset, get some fresh rubber on them for the last couple laps. So Duna Savalainen and Tico Vandervelde just making their out of the pit stop right now. Here's Chris Sievert. He's going to finish up a lap, has not set one yet, was maybe waiting for the track to be rubbered in just a little bit more before he stepped out on the track. He's got plenty of room in front of him. The cars out that are coming out of the pit lane are at least 5-6 seconds up the road. He's going to come across the line. This should be his first lap. Up into P8 is Sievert. Nice little lap there by the 83 Honda NSX. He's going to actually abandon the next one and go ahead, reset, get some tires, and come back out. Amir Foch here is the man that was fighting with Tinkle Vandervelde in the practice session at the end. Watching from his front splitter cam coming across sector 2 into the and onto, oh no, sorry, this is in sector 3. This is coming out to the finish line here. Samir Foch about a 10th up on his lap. That's going to actually pick up a few positions for him as well, up into P3. So on the podium so far is Samir Foch. Valentin Berrier back in P10. He's going to pick up a few tenths as well. Coming across the line, not going to be quite as good as Foch, but into P5 is Berrier going to abandon that car back to the pit lane, get some new tires on him. He's got time for 2 more laps. As you're seeing the BMW out behind Zampiri here, weaving all along, trying to get that heat back into the tires after abandoning the lap. This is the thing about a 10-minute session, Jesse, is if you do make that decision to go back to the pit lane, get some new boots on it, and come back out, your tires are cold, right? And you've really got to weigh those pros and cons. Is it really worth it to maybe set a slower lap on that first one, but also have the fresh rubber for a second lap? You're basically doing like 2 Super Bowl sessions at this point on a 10-minute qualifying, or you can come out and run the full 10 minutes, and it's like most people are going for those two lap to maybe 3 lap runs.
Yeah, I actually really like that strategy of coming in around the halfway point, because if you do that, you know what you're going to get at the end of that second 5 minutes. So it's really not a big risk at all, even if you have to make an adjustment or two, which a lot of these guys probably did do. Not a big deal at that point. I think right now it's a little bit too late, but what do I know? I'm sitting up here in the box. I have a microphone in my hand, not a wheel, but I do feel like coming in at the halfway point was the smartest decision, and I feel like most everyone did that. Christoph Verstappen coming in to P9 with that quicker lap. Savalainen still with the mark, a 33.870. Everyone chasing him, watching us coming to the line, and that will be a massive improvement from 22nd to 14, a 34.540, and gets an additional lap. They'll be one of the last cars, unless my math is incorrect, that gets to the line. I'm pretty sure Tico Vandervelde will get another lap in as well. What will this be? An improvement from the Williams Esports driver. Yes, it will, up to second place. The second driver in the 33s. It's a 33.997 for Tico Vandervelde in the 66. As the times continue to come down, I feel like it's imperative I remind you, this is High Pro Split. This is the top split running in the Friday Championship here at RCI. That's where you'll likely find the quickest times, but also the closest amount of people together up at the top.
Yeah, Savalainen has been picking up on his lap a little bit. It's been fluctuating through his final lap here. He's looking at picking up just a little bit more time, in danger of being overtaken by Tinkle Vandervelde, but don't know if he'll quite make it. He's coming through final sector of corners at the moment, almost onto the back straight. So he's just behind, or just in front of Tinkle Vandervelde here. That is the Mercedes directly ahead, the red ones. They're chasing each other. Tinkle Vandervelde currently about 2 tenths up on his lap, where Savalainen's only about a half a tenth up. It's going to be a very close race for the finish here at the top. And of course, De Kaiser is still on a hot lap as well. He is behind these guys by about 45 seconds on the track. That means that he will have a chance to pick up some time. He is picking up time on his lap as well. Savalainen has actually lost it here through Sector 3. Tinko Vandervelde gaining, losing, still potentially a couple tenths. He's going to come out of the final corner. I think Tinko Vandervelde's got it. It's going to be about 2 tenths across the line, and Vandervelde in the 66 for the Williams Esports going to take the pole position here just as the qualifying expires. De Kaiser, I don't think he's got it in him. He's still got almost a dead even lap time, but all three Mercedes so far up on the podium positions for the qualifying session. Final laps are being had at the moment. De Kaiser is very much picking up time here through Sector 3. He's got a 10th in him at the moment. How good can he do the last corner will be the question. And he's picking up a little bit of time on the braking, but losing it on the exit. And I don't think it's going to be enough to get up to P2. It will be an improvement, but just not quite enough. Mercedes, 1, 2, 3 so far. But Caracas, Jesse Lee, half a second up. Is he going to take it? He is. 1.5 tenths. Caracas at the last moment showing that he wants to be beating Boothby on the point standings, taking the pole position. Nobody else is going to be up there to fight him at this point. Caracas in his 119 McLaren going to take that pole position away from Tinko Vandervelde, and that is exactly what that 119 driver wanted to see.
I was just going to say results of qualifying confirmed. First of all, Caracas on pole, and Tico Vandervelde second, Juna Savalainen third, and Dijkstra in the fourth place position. Verstappen rounding out the top five. And you'll notice that Caracas was only the quickest driver of all in Sector 3, and Tinko was quickest in Sector 2. And I think Dijkstra in the 8:14 was actually, yeah, indeed, was the quickest driver in Sector 2. So usually what that means, folks, is the race is going to be very interesting indeed. If nobody is quickest in all the sectors, that means places where there is time to be found. What I was going to say, Mike Jones, was for Caracas anyway, that was absolutely brilliant to come in there at the final moment and do that, because had they not, Vandervelde and of course Savalainen, neither one of those drivers are in the top 10 in the championships points, or at least they weren't on the table that I have. Speaking of points, Mike Jones.
Yeah, so here is the points after the first two rounds. Now, keep in mind that this is not with the pole position. This is only after the first two rounds. That means pole position has went to Caracas. That's plus 4 points. He's up to 99. Now, George Boothby, the two wins, the two pole positions, and the two fastest laps that man has gotten so far, 144. However, he will score 0 points today. There is another 68 points up for grabs for Caracas. That will put him in the lead if he takes P1. And that 68 points does also include the 3 points for the fastest lap. So George Boothby, Caracas, P1, P2 in their McLarens. You also have Honzik again, not here today. In P3, he will lose that position very handedly to multiple drivers as they continue on. Valentin Berrier is here, and of course Samir Foch with a fantastic qualifying from him in P7. Berrier just behind him in P8. That's going to be a fight to watch as they're only a few point difference. Martin Grady, who we've been keeping an eye on all through this championship, new car for him in this year, really, and not just this season, but this year. He used to driving the Bentley last season as he migrated over from GT Sport in the McLaren this time. He is not very confident in his racing ability here at Misano. He said that last week, though, and ended up having a fantastic performance at Donington in the wet. However, qualified P23 did Martin Grady, so he's going to have a bit of a struggle to get up at least into the top 10 and keep those points. The second BMW on the grid, of course, Latau back in P7, only a couple points behind Grady. Malinowski not here today, of course, doing the esports race. Wajna, who we watched do quite a bit of qualifying there. He was the one that wrecked off earlier and then finally set a little bit better lap back in P11 in qualifying. P9 in the point standings, tied with Savalainen, who, of course, took the podium. Savalainen has it all to lose here against Wajna for this race, as the Mercedes are showing very dominant here, Jesse Lee, as we're looking back the rest of the grid.
Yeah, of course, you got Wolf Gruber in 11th place, Verstappen, Giacomelli, Zampiri, Vandervelde, by the way, who I mentioned earlier, in 15th place. What today could do for his championship points. Alstretch, Keeble, Dubel, Nito, and Payne, the top 20. Only 2 rounds done. Several of those drivers tied for 13th place, of course, and the points very close regardless of where you are.
And looking back just through the remainder of the grid, Siebert, of course, who we saw put down a pretty decent lap. They were up in P7 at some point during qualifying, demoted down to P12 overall, but Honda could potentially have a good look at a race today, as the Honda, I think, does pretty well here at Misano. Scarmetto, Consacchio, Sizak, Sinodi, Valle, Levchenko, Alexander Klimes, and De Kaiser. Of course, De Kaiser was one of the ones that is fighting for the top 10 in the practice and qualifying sessions. But De Kaiser was finished in P4. There it is. I was trying to find him. So he did end up taking P4. He's the other Mercedes that was near the top of the grid. So De Kaiser could very well pick up quite a bit of points today. The last three drivers that have that are still in the championship here: Kellaway, Stephenson, and of course the newcomer Joe McCauley in P33. The rest of the guys there are no longer championship, as you have a line for their points. Going back over to live pictures of the grid. These guys about ready to fire up the GT3 machinery. Here is the pole sitter, Grantas Caracas in his 119 purple slash pinkish McLaren. Nico Vanderbilt going to sit to his left. Caracas going to have the inside line as he comes across. Jesse, I think I can feel the cars booting up here, getting ready to go. The comms box starting to vibrate as 26 GT3 cars start rumbling those engines outside of our pit lane here and drop the jacks for the last time. Make sure they've got the fresh tires on. No rain in sight for the moment. I think it's going to be one hell of a race.
It sure is. If you were with us last night in the GT4s, you will have noticed that it was a drama filled couple of races. No such races to speak of here tonight. Just the 1 hour race with a pit stop somewhere in between. And I think it's just going to be as drama filled, though. This track is known for creating, we'll say, log jams behind cars and also making tempers flare. They certainly flared yesterday. I don't think today's going to be any different. Passing comes at a premium here. We started the show by talking about if you're not in the top 10, we pretty much argue you can forget about a chance at winning today. But starting at the front, this is a golden opportunity for Caracas. Caracas is the closest to George Boothby anyway. They could build up a points lead today, but the drivers behind him are 10th or worse in this championship. They're licking their chops. They can get not only inside the top 10, maybe the top 5 here today, and maybe make a run for a championship. And for Tinko Vandervelde, who has just had the worst luck with Judas Savalainen as well, it could be an excellent day to maybe jump Caracas and get some points. Starting second here sometimes, Mike, is a blessing, because if you can hang it around the outside of turn 1, you're in the right position for turn 2, and it's easy to make a pass there if you're alongside.
And the same thing could be said not just for turn 2, but also, as you come into the chicane here, right? So as you're coming into the chicane and then subsequently all the way down the back straight and or all the way down the turn 7 straight. Technically, that's considered a turn here at Misano. And then the back straight here, if you stay on the outside, you will eventually get on past. On the outside of turn 1, you will eventually get on past. So we saw the Mercedes get nice jumps over the past couple races. If we look at Donington last week, obviously, Savalainen struggled, but Malinowski absolutely trounced the grid off the start with that Mercedes. And just being able to pick up all those positions, which kind of led into the 1-2-3 that Yassin had last week. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they actually start here. And also, something we didn't talk about as well is Verstappen did end up P5. So the Bentley has done pretty well on the qualifying grid, or for that matter as well. I know you said that you were looking at the Bentley as a very strong car here where we started the stream. He's back at P5, and Verstappen definitely has a shot to get up here as well. But we are seeing these guys take to the double file. Caracas on the right side of the track. Nico Vanderbilt to his left. Savalainen in his red Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo behind him. A little bit of a different livery for him. And a Kaiser to his left side coming across. pit lane and down the pit straight for the final time at this speed, 43 miles an hour, as they're going to cross into the green flag. Watching the lights out in front of it. It is green. Here we go racing. Round 3 of the Friday GT3 Challenge kicking off. Deep into turn 1, the McLaren and Mercedes side by side as they come across. Little bit of a contact, but you can see down into turn 2, the Mercedes has now got the inside line, but he's still not able to make it so far. The 720 of Caracas holding side by side against him. Now as they come into the bus stop, this is going to be where the 720 has the legs. You can see Savalainen diving a little bit to the inside of Tinko van der Velde. They're not able to get it done, but Verstappen has picked up the position against the 100 in the background. So that is going to be, or sorry, not the 100 in the background, the 814 in the background. So Verstappen does pick up the position into P4, but everybody else has sorted out single file where they qualified.
That was an excellent start by Caracas. Tinko van der Velde, contact between the two of them did not phase either one as they continued side by side, but eventually Caracas got it done. Oh no, who is that off in the AMG? Is that the 814? It is the 814, as I don't know what happened there, just outbroke themselves and ended up very wide. No contact, they get it continued, but they lost a lot of spots. Meanwhile, up front, Caracas under intense pressure from van der Velde here. Van der Velde has to watch out because Jonas Savalainen's right there, and so is Christoph Verstappen. All of these drivers are nose to tail. I told you before the green flag today that sometimes you can create log jams or procession queues of cars. I think we've got just that, as I think through the middle sectors, Tinko was a little bit quicker than our leader there.
I think so as well. As the question being is, can you get past the leader? Because as we said, not necessarily the easiest track to do passes on. Yellow flags there just before the start-finish line, so that will be our first major incident of the race. We'll take a back look at that in just a moment. Actually, here it is right here. So
it happened in front.
Yeah, it happened in front. So it was the BMW up front. Then a nice little pile up as they came through the final set of corners. Obviously, the stewards will be taking a look at that here in just a few minutes, but not too bad till the last corner there. Unfortunately, right at the end of the lap, having a bit of an issue. Taking a look back up to the top of the grid, we've got Verstappen and Savalainen side by side here. Verstappen sticking his nose under that 100 Mercedes AMG, not able to get around on the previous corner, so now he's going to make it around the outside before they come out of the back straight. Is not able to get that passed up. Very difficult to pass through that turn 10 section on the outside as they come out onto the back straight. So gonna have to slot back in, get the slipstream, look to the inside, and Savalainen doing a pretty good job at keeping it blocked off to an extent. It's not easy to run side by side down that back straight. You would think it would be looking at it, Jesse, but it is not. You can't pass people going into turn 11, turn 12, because if you miss your line ever so slightly, you've got to brake and slow so much to keep the car steady. As we saw, Wajna go off earlier in the qualifying session through there just by himself, missing that brake ever so slightly. You've got to be so careful. It's so difficult to pass. The 229 off again. It looks like well, what did I say? What did I say, Jesse?
Yeah, just absolutely opposite lock there, and ended up resetting to pit lane. Some significant damage to that car probably contributed to that second accident, but a frustrating day, becoming even more frustrating here just on lap 2 for that driver, as they've had to reset. Oh, a little bit of contact. Joe McCauley was down the inside of Nito there, and Nito gave no quarter, and McCauley sort of had to let him go there for a brief moment. And that is the kind of racing that you'll have here. Very close stuff, a lot of side-by-side contact, a lot of minor stuff as well, such as the Nito McCauley contact, as Isaac here in 18th place now, trying to get some, back down to 19th. That is correct.
Side by side for the lead again.
Here we have exactly what I was talking about. I just feel like Tinko has a little bit more pace here in the middle sector on the back straight. That isn't a back straight, that's actually two dog legs together. But whenever we get to this third sector here, I feel like Caracas, it just has a little bit more than Tinko van der Velde does. But in that middle sector, I feel like a pass could be possible if Tinko can stay really close after Sector 1. I feel like he could challenge Caracas, as it hasn't happened yet, but it could do. Also, Joe McCauley in the pit lane early. Of course, the mandatory pit stop all season long. The pit window open. McCauley in very early. That's an old school strat. You don't see that much anymore in RCI. We'll see if Joe can execute that perfectly. Keep in mind, he was running about 17. We'll see where he ends up. By the way, one other thing I want to point out, Mike Jones. The end of lap 1, did you catch who had the fastest lap?
I did. It was Neto, if I'm not mistaken, or Neto in P16. I know that it slotted down to him at the end of the first lap, but Caracas quickly took that back, and it's been cycling between Caracas, Vanderbilt, and Savalainen.
Actually, it was Levchenko who had the fastest lap at the end of lap 1. For those of you who had Levchenko as the fastest on lap 1, fill in your bingo card, please. That was very shocking that a car in the middle of the field was the fastest car on lap 1. But there you have it. But like you said, Caracas took it, but now, oh my goodness, a big move by Gratis Caracas, and that might lose him the lead. He still has it for a moment, but he's going to be forced on the outside, and that's going to mean Tico Vandervelde is going to take the lead here. What will Caracas do? Remember, Caracas is arguably quicker in sectors 1 and 3, but now under fire from Savalainen. Savalainen trying to get this spot around the outside. The outside will become the inside, but covered up by Caracas. Expertly done. New leader of the race, Tico Vandervelde.
Yeah, and this is so dangerous for Caracas at this point, because if he starts getting nervous, if he starts sliding his tires a little bit more. Now, keep in mind, it is not that much of a stretch for these guys to come in and pit for tires. It is mandatory 25 seconds in the pit lane. It only takes an extra 5 seconds to get tires. But if you start sliding off like that, Savalainen is directly behind you. He's got the purple lap. Savalainen, oh, look at the big dive! The big dive and the punt into Tico Vandervelde. Going into turn 10. The big punt from the 720 under Vanderbilt. That's going to lose them all the way back to P10 or 11. They're going to have to cycle that back out. Caracas has not given up the position so far. It is not very safe to do so at the moment unless he pulls over here and lets him by. It does not look like he's going to do so. Damage to the front end of that McLaren 720S, damage to the back end of Vanderbilt's Mercedes back in the 66. That is likely going to be a drive-through penalty for the 119 from the stewarding team here shortly. That is going to completely ruin his chances at a finish to take over Boothby. Here it is again, Jesse Lee. You can see he just outbrakes himself. He just slots it down. He tries to abandon it at the last second. It's not soon enough. He has to drive outside of the track along the outside. Tinko now has to rejoin the track, make his way back up the field. I'm pretty sure Tinko can, but the problem is even if these drivers are a couple tenths slower than him a lap, it's still so difficult to pass here again at Misano that it's going to struggle so much. But Caracas cracking under the pressure of potentially being first place in the championship has now yeeted Tinko off in turn 10. Massive penalty likely going to be coming his way.
That was absolutely unheard of, folks. I told you about the fireworks we had one night ago, and some of it was actually very similar to that, just trying to cheat up in the braking zone, out-braking yourself. But that was a massive moment for Caracas there, and Tico Vandervelde is going to be absolutely fuming after that. That's how his season has gone all season long so far, for the first two races, and to be leading and to be taken out unceremoniously. But I will say, Judah Savalainen, who is now the fastest car on the racetrack, has been for the last several laps. He's out front in the lead, but he's still got Verstappen all over him. We've got a change up at the front, but there's still two cars, nose to tail, fighting over that spot. Savalainen can't believe his luck. Verstappen can't believe his luck. Tico can't believe his luck. And Caracas is probably frustrated with himself as well. Absolutely every time, Mike, we come here, there's drama in this race. And it's you hate it for the drivers, but you love it as entertainment. It's absolutely unpredictable.
Yeah, and it's something that, these drivers are going to be so frustrated themselves for, because Misano, again, it's just not the easiest track to pass at. So when you do make these types of mistakes, you have to slot yourself back down the field. It's something that you're just going to continue to bleed positions and bleed positions, especially if you end up receiving a penalty like we expect Caracas to do. So this is on board. The car just behind him now. Wajna for the Jardia Community Team, Porsche number 16. This is back in P7, so you can see just how far they have fallen. Now, that said, Jesse, I say far by positions. You say the P1, P2 are nose to tail. It's actually pretty much all the way back to P13 from P1. That's more or less nose to tail still, which is ridiculous. I mean, if you look at your track map, all of these guys still stacked up. A small incident like that could shake up the grid again. If Savalainen has an incident, and even a small one, he could slot back to P10 very easily and very quickly. So the race is not over yet. If any mistakes are had by any of these drivers, which is very easy to do here at Misano, even by yourself, it's something that we can see these continue to have problems. And of course, the pit strategy will come into play here as well, because there's just not enough time to lose. Drivers may not be able to take tires here today, because losing 5 seconds in the pit lane is going to have huge implications.
I'm absolutely going to agree with you on that. And Dubel trying to go around down the inside here. It hasn't quite worked out for him. He's hanging tough, trying to get up the inside here. After two, he almost got it done, but to no avail. Single file again, but right up the back of Valentin Berrier. Now beside him, he's done it. Look, he's got beside him. Side by side they are, and all of a sudden, Adam Dubel has got the spot away, or has he?
Ooh.
They're still side by side. Off the track, going 3 wide here. Samir Foch up the inside, 3 wide into a hard left-hander. Do they sort it out here? They do. I can't tell you how often that ends in drama. It didn't here. A brilliantly driven corner by all involved. And look who's there. Caracas, who's trying to fight his way back to the front of this field, getting involved. It's all just a melee for 4th place. They're side by side, 2 rows deep nearly.
Wajna stuck himself under Caracas as well. He ended up picking up that position. Now he's under fire from the Audi. It's Sinodi there in the background, still side by side, going to come in through turn 11 and then into that braking zone of turn 12. Such a difficult corner by yourself. You can see the Ferrari of Gubbio slide all the way through the corner. Caracas sliding himself underneath the Porsche this time. He wants that position back. He does get it for the moment. He is clear in the background. The Ferrari side by side coming into turn 15.
Foch!
Hard on the brakes. Foch slots himself immediately across Dubio's bumper. He wanted that position. He said, no, I'm not having this anymore, and he got it. 1 spot for Foch up into P4, but this is just amazing driving up through the top 15. Nose to tail all the way through. All of these guys driving incredibly respectfully for the moment, and we'd love to see this. Tinko Vandervelde, though, is still the big loser here, still in P9, Jesse. He has not been able to make anything happen since he slotted back to P9 with the incident earlier. It's just so difficult to get past anybody, especially when they're 3 wide in front of you. And as Stewie just pointed out as well, that last lap, Jesse Lee, 4 seconds gained by Savalainen and Verstappen from the leaders when all this fight was going on. And by the way, I see a drive-through for Caracas. Jesse, have you been slotted a piece of paper? I'm going to assume you have.
Yeah, of course I have, Mike. Big welcome into the stewards. Of course, all the Friday championship races live stewarded. Thank you to our armada of live stewards. Drive-through penalty for car 119. That's Caracas for taking out the 66 position not returned. So drive-through penalty for taking out the 66 for the 119. As Ryan Gill would say, that's pretty much slam dunk and a no-brainer there, but still, they have to make that call, and it is, in my opinion, called correctly. Additionally, racing incident for the 909 and the 27. No further action between the 66 and the 119. That was a lap 1, turn 1 contact that we picked up on. Racing incident between the 909 and the 229. And racing incident between the 118 and the 43. That's all I have right now, but I can tell you they're still working.
Oh, yeah, of course they are. And they had that big incident, of course, at the end of lap 1 that they do have to review. Here's a replay of Tinko Vandervelde taking over Sinodi around the, I think think this is the final sector of corners here, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, that was T1 and T2. I'm sorry. I still, however many times I've been to this track, Jesse Lee, and how much times I love racing around here, I never can recognize the corners here. And it's something that is just one of those that they all blends into each other, I feel like, because the track is so thin. But Sievert doing pretty well for himself. Up into P11. Of course, he started a couple spots back from where he's at. So this Honda doing pretty well today. Great to see the Honda up here fighting for a potential top 10. He is in this pack of cars that is fighting for the lead effectively, or at least for P3 at this point, as Berrier continues to lose time to the leaders up front. Savalainen and Verstappen just stepping away from the field at this point, staying very steady. Savalainen is still holding on to that purple lap as well. Side by side here are the Ferraris again, going into the hairpin at the back end of the track. Dubiel's going to take over from Foch. So the 488 slots back to P5 as these guys just continue to play leapfrog on each other, while the Porsche Wajda behind him, and again the Porsche Berrier ahead of them, is looking for the opportunity to come on pass. He's going to look at the outside of turn 1. Likely not going to get it done there. Not quite the nose ahead as far as he could be, and so the 488 going to go ahead and just slot back in front of the 16 very easily for it this time. But that is leaving Foch to lose time to the car in front. Here is Caracas, by the way, Jesse Lee. I can see an SG30 on his board, and you know what that tells me? Speeding in the pit lane during his drive-through. Race, let's be honest, race done for him.
Yeah, he's still got to come in for a pit stop as well. Don't forget that. And of course, that is indeed what it was. He came in to serve the drive-through penalty assigned by the stewards for the takeout, but of course was speeding in pit lane. Of course, the 1.8 update, some people still getting used to having to be at the speed limit of 50 kilometers at the line. Used to be able, as long as you got down to it and were on the limiter, you could actually speed a little bit in pit lane. Can't do that anymore. Maybe out of frustration, wasn't really paying attention. It could have been a lot of things, but nevertheless, speeding in pit lane will get you a stop and go 30, and that is pretty much going to be, like you said, the end of it for Caracas. Meanwhile, Tico trying to get by Wajda to no avail there. A couple of good heartfelt attempts, but no results for Tico Vandervelde here. But for Caracas, it could have been a day, Mike, where could have built such a nice championship lead as Samir Foch and a couple of other cars come into pit lane. I think that was Giacomelli as well in the 6, and indeed it is, doing their pit stop. But going back to Caracas, it could have been a day that he could have built a nice lead. He didn't even have to win this race. Savalainen and Vandervelde weren't really a threat to him back in 10th and 15th respectively, but it just hasn't come off. He now stands to lose more than just a bunch of points. He might not be the championship leader after today.
No, I don't think he will be at this point. I don't think he's going to be gaining enough points in order to do that at this point. I mean, unless something happens. We never know, right? I mean, there's still 40 minutes left in the race, so you don't know what's going to happen. But I think you're entirely right at this point. And it's very interesting to watch these pit stop strategies play out as well. As I just said, Samir Foch made his pit stop as well. He wanted to stop fighting with Dubiel. So I'm very curious to see, how Foch does, because Foch and Dubiel up here fighting, for P5 or P4, P3, even with Berrier. Some of these guys making those early pits, as you said earlier, Jesse, the undercuts don't happen that often, but it is something that people are looking like they're doing here today, likely because of the pack of traffic that's going on. So, what do you think about it? Do you think it's going to be the right call to come in and do the undercut?
I like Samir's strategy usually, and I'm going to go with yes on that. I like that the fact that passed Adam and then Adam got back by him. He must have thought, it's just not worth it to lose more time and hand over fist. So coming in for him was absolutely the right call. For Berrier and Dubiel, I don't think it is the right call. And I think they're also doing the right thing by not coming in. But for Samir specifically, absolutely. Chinati, by the way, in as well. Chinati was in the middle of a fight. I think that's the right call. If you feel as a driver that you're stuck behind somebody and you have to do the stop anyway, why not come on in? Absolutely the right call in my opinion.
Well, watching the 840 here, still chase down Barrier ahead of him. Doesn't look like these guys are losing too much time to each other at the moment, so potentially the right call for Foch, but it also may help out Bill as well in his 840 Ferrari because now he's not losing time to fighting with Foch. Very interesting concept here of, potentially help yourself, but it also might directly help your competitor on top of it. The benefit here for Dubiel is that he's getting slipstream off the back of Barrier when they come down the straight, so he might gain just that touch more time through the pit lane. I was looking back at some of the pit stops. Looks like Joe McCauley had a 122 pit stop. I don't believe he took tires so early, so that means that we're looking at a 125 to 127 pit stop if somebody does take tires. And so we're going to keep an eye on these pit deltas as they come out and see who is and who is not taking tires. Martin Grady looks like he, of course, made his pit stop earlier, potentially a little bit of damage from him from that lap 1 incident. Because he had a few extra seconds in the pit lane as well. SG30 is going out once again. Sinodi in the 51, Jesse Lee speeding in the pit lane. Multiple cars here maybe didn't practice their pit stops and practice and qualifying session through the past week at Misano here. The line is actually pretty far ahead. You actually come around the corner, speed back up a little bit, and then once again get on the brakes. But if you're not careful, you can speed up a little bit too much coming out of the corner and sit yourself out for an SG30, or perhaps releasing your limiter early because, of course, the pit exit runs all the way around the turn 1 sector out into turn 3. So if you release your limiter early before you hit the proper line, again, SG30 for him. We saw Caracas there in the pit lane for his stop and go. He's just released from his pit box now, down second to last out on the track. Of course, 26th position in his pit box. So Caracas basically in last place, and Sinodi's going to join him here in just a moment.
Yeah, it's a fight near the bottom of the grid. Of course, stop-go 30s are any penalty really, but a stop-go 30 is just a dagger to the heart in a 1-hour race. There's almost no chance of picking yourself up. But for Juna Savalainen, it is just about a picture-perfect day. Got 2.5 seconds over Verstappen in second place, and it's all going to plan for Juna right now. And that's exactly how Juna won't say that's how I drew it up, but they will say, we'll take that as a win. And sometimes I always say this to people, and I've told you this several times over the years, Mike, and I'll say it again. Would you rather be first, second, or third in a fight? I always want to be third. Juna Savalainen proves me right.
I prefer being in the front. I prefer defending rather than attacking personally. So I go the opposite route as Wolfgruber now assaulting Siebert here in the Honda, coming into the first hairpin at the end of the back straight, turn number 8. A little bit of a wiggle there from both cars. Siebert running a little wide. The 41 not being able to get on the throttle quite early enough, so Siebert going to take hold of that position for the moment. The 51 has cleared their stop and go penalty as the 329 receives a 15-second penalty. They're in the pit lane at the moment. I believe that was for a collision. I just saw something slide across the desk to Jesse. He'll tell us about that in just a second as we switch back. Adam Dubiel still chasing down Valentin Barrier here. I don't think he's trying to pass him at the moment, Jesse, not unless he makes a mistake. Not hard passing him anyway. I think he's kind of comfortable behind Barrier unless there's a mistake made. But be interesting to continue to watch this fight, because of course we should see people pitting for the most part here within the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, he's not showing signs of frustration as Adam Dubiel, but honestly, I feel like he would rather the Porsche speed up or have a little bit of courtesy to get side by side, maybe get around him in the most convenient way possible. But either way, I think you might be right though, because Adam's not driving aggressively. He just does feel like the Ferrari is comfortable running in that position. There's no pressure behind, and I don't think he's putting too much pressure on Barrier in front. Now, that could be because they're fairly evenly matched, but that also could be, like you said, just absolutely no pressure. And you were right. I do have a couple of things that have come across the desk from the steward's box. 5-second penalty for car 229 for forcing a driver off of the track. And a 15-second penalty for car 329 for taking out the 229. Penalty reduced from a drive-through penalty because the position was attempted to be given back, but wasn't actually possible at the time. So kindness there, keeping a drive-through off the board for the
Ooh.
329, so 15 seconds only.
Yeah, here's the bounce off of turn 12, by the way. It just happens if you just slightly get it wrong. Good hold by Dubiel, but you can see him. He just caught that curb ever so slightly. Really had to jerk his wheel over very quickly, but good hold by him. And you can see there's the pit line right there as he's coming in. So he's all the way down at the limiter by the time he hits the line, but you can tell that Dubiel perhaps practiced his pit stop. Of course, a couple of the other guys didn't, as the SG30s have one out, but that is the other Ferrari diving into the pit lane, and this is what's going to be very telling. By the way, Jesse Lee, Samir Foch made his pit stop and has taken purple lap away from Jonas Savalainen, so the 488 perhaps did make the right call by coming into the pit lane early, as he was the fastest man on the track in the past few laps here. Very curious to see where Dubiel comes out. I'm keeping an eye on that while we're keeping an eye on Tinko versus Wajna here. Tinko really wanted to get back up those positions that he lost earlier to the incident with Caracas, and he's not able to get past the Porsche yet of Wajna, but it's something that he's going to continue to struggle with, of course, as again, we will say it again and again and again, it is so difficult to pass here at Misano, but he's going to be giving it his best shot. He should be picking up a little bit of time. The 85 getting themselves an SG30. I believe that said for a track cut as that popped up. So potentially a very bad track cut for the 85 from Valet just happened. I'm curious maybe if I'm going to see if I can find that on my replay machine. Let's switch over to Dubiel here. Oh, no, there it is. Yeah, right there. So Foch and Dubiel. Jesse Lee, Foch, literally gained a second in the pit lane versus Dubiel and has taken over that position for the moment and has gotten the fastest lap point so far.
Yeah, Samir gave himself a shot, and that's all it took for him to get by Adam Dubiel. And again, that was right for Foch, and I don't think Adam did anything wrong either. I think when Adam pitted, that was right for him. But it just so happens that Foch ended up being a little quicker in pit lane, and also apparently a little quicker than everybody else on the racetrack as well. By the way, there was a drive-through penalty for Valley there. That was for track cutting. That was not a stop-go 30.
No. It was a DT from the stewards, if I'm not mistaken, then an extra DT for track cutting. Because he got two DTs back-to-back that gave him the SG30.
I see. Okay, I was very confused there. You were talking about stop and go, and no, he still got a drive. No, excuse me. That's for the 840. The 840 has a drive-through as well, as it's all kicking off here. One other thing that I was going to mention earlier is exactly that, track limits. I think last night, I think we set a record for the most drive-throughs in a 20-minute race. And it's so easy on a couple of corners around here. Get a drive-through penalty. They're very, very finicky. And if you get it a little bit wrong, you're going to get a track cut because of just the way the track is. If you take too much to the inside and on a couple of occasions to the outside of some of the curbs, and it's probably one of the most particular tracks in ACC. And if you think the couple of drive-throughs are the only ones you're going to see tonight, it's going to get worse as the final half of the race goes on. Track just went to optimum as well about 5 minutes ago or so, which is pretty perfect for everyone involved. No sign of rain, and just about no chance of rain as we enter the second half.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is about the Italian tracks, at least within ACC, but Imola, another one of those tracks, is alongside Misano that is very susceptible to drive-through penalties from track limits, and it's absolutely, I think, what we're going to continue to see through the day. Stewie just bringing up, by the way, that Samir Foch has also beat out Valentin Berrier in the pit lane. Valentin Berrier, with a bit of a slower pit stop, than Foch by about a couple tenths. That didn't lose him all the time. However, what did lose him was his in and out laps. The in and out laps just not quite as fast from Berrier, which has put Foch up ahead of him at least by a second or so. Of course, he is still a quick car out on the track. I would not expect him to fall off the back of Foch at all, but these guys are potentially going to be fighting for a podium position, as that, of course, is Wajna behind him. Got a Porsche sandwich with a Ferrari in the center, almost exactly about a second apart from each other. And Dubiel, of course, has just lost all of those positions. Dubiel just coming out of the pit lane right now after serving his drive-through.
Max Wajna in the sixth place position, the leader of all of the cars that have pitted. What an excellent stop that must have been for the driver of the 16 Porsche, the Jardier community team, who I know we have more than a few people in our chat tonight rooting for the Jardier community team. So a shout out to Max there, who absolutely got it done on his stop. And now the question is, just how far is Max going to end up this field? But Wajna has Samir closing in for that position. It's going to be a Porsche on Ferrari battle here next couple of laps or so. Actually, it might be a little sooner than that. Samir Foch with just an absolute head of steam. What kind of fuel is he putting in that Ferrari, I wonder?
I don't know. I think the base race fuel is like 100 octane or something, isn't it, or something like that? So maybe he's put a little bit of like 105 in it or something, because he's definitely picking up time here. We have not seen Foch fight for a fastest lap here at all through the first couple races. Just not even slightly, close to Boothby even. Of course, Boothby well ahead of everybody usually for the most part, but Foch really showing strength there at Misano. Of course, the home track, one of the home tracks of the Ferrari here out in Italy, trying to go along the outside of turn number 8. Not gonna be able to get it done there. He needs to be careful, because if he makes those moves like that, Jesse, we have said it time and time and time again through this Friday championship, you leave an opening and there it is again. Look at it, Berrier hard on the brakes, down into turn 10, slots it on the inside. He's going to be on the inside now, coming across the double dog leg here. Here's turn 11. Foch has the nose out ahead still. It's going to be the question of who can brake harder into turn 12. Who's got Brave in them at the moment? It looks like it's going to be Berrier, but the cutback going to come around down into the hairpin. Foch, slight contact happening between the two. We're going to slot it back ahead one more time, and you know these drivers are grinning ear to ear at this point, side-by-side racing all the way down through Sector 2 into the final corner. Foch going to hold it for the moment, but you can tell Berrier is not done fighting that Ferrari, and neither of these guys are done fighting the Porsche ahead of them in the 16. The Jardier community team members are going to go at it here with, of course, Foch, who drives with them often enough. All three of these guys, I would not be surprised all three of these guys are up on comms with each other, Jesse, trying to make sure that they know that, they're fighting each other and they know that they're here. There's a little bit of a gap behind them back to Giacomelli for the moment in his Aston Martin. They've got a little bit of space to do this, and Verstappen far enough ahead of them at this point that even if they hook up nose to tail, they've got to pick up 5 seconds. They're just going to have fun with each other at this point and fight for P5.
Well, this is why you do it. You do it to have fun, and why not? The Jardier community team, they show up in force as per usual in RCI competition, and they're showing out tonight. And this has just been an excellent fight, as Foch, who I thought was going to be completely gone, is still being held up by Max here. And Valentin Berrier doing his part for the cause as well, getting in there amongst them, getting side by side. Excellent racing, minor contact, little things like that as a driver. Usually, if you're a veteran driver, you kind of let that go, especially if you know who you're racing against. Samir knows Valentin, and they've raced each other enough that they're most likely willing to just sort of let that go. There's no intent there. There's no harm. It doesn't really mess with the car so much. So you're willing to let that go. What you're not willing to let go is this. The door was open. Valentin Berrier sticking his nose in there. Is Samir Foch going to go backwards? He is. He is going to go backwards. Is that Giacomelli? Giacomelli now trying to join in on the fight here. Trying to go around the outside of Samir Foch. Foch closes the door, gets the run, and stops the bleeding. But position for Valentin Berrier as Samir Foch, the fastest man on the track for at least the last 5 or 6 laps, who is no longer the fastest driver on the track, ends up going backwards here. Excellent team tactics by the Jardier community team. And you saw Savert there, who is the quickest driver in the 83 Honda. It's now Adam Dubiel, who is the quickest driver on the track. This is incredible stuff.
Yeah, what we saw Dubiel take over the purple lap there for a lap. Sever took it over from him, and then Dubiel took it straight back. That 840 looking very quick out on the track at the moment, as is the 83 out in clean air, trying to pick up time. Foch looking to the inside of Berrier one more time there, but he doesn't want to risk the Aston Martin behind him sticking the nose down out through the back straight. He knows that they're very difficult to defend. The Porsches are just a hair breadth between them. Foch going along the outside, very brave on the brakes, but that he's got to be careful. He will get a drive-through penalty if he's not careful. A little bit of a track cut there. He may have gotten a warning from that from race control. On the inside, not quite enough though. He's going to slot back behind Berrier for the moment. The Aston Martin looking to the inside of the final corner, but not quite there. And actually, Huey's right. I did miss that because of the identical liveries, but Berrier did indeed take over from Wajna there. So Wajna is the one ahead. And look at Berrier. He's now a second ahead. He might be the fastest one of these guys, Jesse, and he might be taking off and gapping them at this point. Maybe Berrier had something left in the tank, and he's going to take off, as there is now a Mercedes right behind that Aston Martin as well. That's the 66 to Tinko Vandervelde back in P7, and you can see Wolfgruber and Sievert have caught as well. This pack shaping up one more time from P5 all the way down to almost P13. P14 is going to stack up one more time. Foch along the outside of the first hairpin. He is not going to be able to get this done. The nose not quite there.
He might though.
The 16. No, I don't think he's going. Oh, never mind. Maybe he will. The 16
he
did
might
get the
though.
run off the corner. I thought he was going to. The 488, he's going to slot in. Great on the brakes. He touches the apex, blocks off the 16. No cutback allowed, and Foch going to take P4 for the moment. So Berrier has taken off for P3 as these guys continue to fight, but there is a 7 or 8 car stack up here, and it's just going to be a case of who is the bravest one on the brakes at each individual corner. So far it's Foch, but I would not be surprised to see Wajna come across him in just a moment, and Tinko is bloodthirsty to get back up at least on the podium.
Yeah, Tinko here is going to be fighting for everything.
Pavalainen takes the purple lap.
Yeah, Tinko needs to keep his mind in the game, and I think he's done a great job of not overdriving the car so far, as Giacomelli makes an attempt, but I think it might have actually hurt him, as Tinko is going to go up the inside. Ooh. It's going to be major contact between the two of them there, as I think Tinko maybe just went a little bit wide there, and the flashing of the lights, the frustration from Vandervelde in the 66, and that's exactly not what you want.
Yeah, Siebert also diving on the inside of the McLaren out behind them as well. He just got past Wolfgruber there. A big wiggle from Wolfgruber as he gets cut off coming out of the corner. And now he's under fire from De Kaiser in the background as well. Wolfgruber under fire on the outside, but that should be just fine for him. Look at this. The Honda, he gets the cutback there coming through. Little bit of a tap as they come through, and then the Honda's just going to say nope and shut the door. You can see the McLaren has to tap the brakes as Siebert shuts the door on him. Gets a bit of a wiggle, but good hold by Wolfgruber to stay there. Back into P8 now, or P9, sorry, is Wolfgruber once the standings update here momentarily. Nico Vandervelde still on the back of Giacomelli here in the number 6. There has been a little bit of a gap to Wajna and Foch now that they're not fighting door to door. I still think, Jesse, that Berrier, Foch, Wajna is faster than this entire group of cars, minus maybe Tinko. But the problem is they keep fighting side by side as Verstappen takes over the purple lap now as well. We don't know who's going to take the fast lap at this point. 21 minutes left in the race. It's changing every single lap. Here is the huge fight for P9. Wolfgruber, De Kaiser, Neto, Ostrauch, all fighting 2 by 2, coming across the line, starting lap 24. The BMW on the inside is going to go ahead, get later on the brakes than that McLaren does, unsurprisingly, and get ahead of him through the Parco section of track of corners here at the start of the lap. For the moment, he's out ahead. It won't last long.
Very close stop, and for Verstappen, that purple lap couldn't have come at a better time. He's been as far back as 4 minutes. Ooh, a little bit there. Oh, it's going to be a crossover move. Tinko trying to keep that spot and just about does. Gets by Giacomelli. If not after a little bit of contact. Was there contact here? Was this clean? It was clean. It was absolutely clean. It was so close. But one more spot for Tinko. Next, indeed, is so much course cutting, but the top 5 beckons for Vandervelde, our deposed race leader earlier in this race. And there is Wajna in the number 16 Porsche. It's not far away, and I think you're absolutely right. It could be on for him. It could be on for Tico Vandervelde as Wajna gives up, and perhaps because he has a drive-through penalty for track limits. That's a rare one. You got to see that live as Wajna got that track cut. I warned you earlier, folks at home, that it's actually really easy to get a track cut here, and there it was, demonstrated. It looked like nothing. It looked insignificant, but alas, it was his 4th track cut.
Yeah, and it's the same thing for a lot of these drivers. They're going to be very close. We saw Foch cut the track a couple times earlier. He's likely stacked up a couple warnings as well. I would not be surprised to see maybe at least 2 more of these guys, is my estimate at the moment, get themselves a track cut drive-through, which will continue to shake up the field. Wajna now going to go all the way down near P17, P18 once he comes out of the pit lane. Only about P15, so that's about where they're slotting back to. But again, almost 20 minutes left in this race. So much time for these guys to get track cuts, make mistakes, and have to make a trip down the pit lane themselves. This pack has not changed since we last looked at it a lap and a half ago. Still got Wolfgruber out ahead, Ostrauch in the back, McLaren's being the outside of the Mercedes and BMW sandwich here. And you can see Joe McCauley in the background, actually, Jesse Lee. Great drive by him today for his return in that 188 Lexus, coming up to the back of these guys. He's in P12 at the moment, side by side going in through turn 11, but slots themselves back before they get in to turn 12 as Wolfgruber and De Kaiser, as these guys continue to fight. Jesse Lee, we have an issue with our leaderboard because the purple lap has been switching so much that is now showing Savalainen and Verstappen both having the purple lap.
I don't actually.
Oh no, it's the same time. Stewie's right. It's the same time.
Exactly the same time. We've seen this before.
Verstappen had it first though.
Yeah, exactly, but we've seen this before in Night Owl, where 2 cars had the identical same fast lap. And that's what happens. You get 2 pink or magenta, if you want to get technical about this, lap times. Now, my question to you, RCI CEO, how do you give points for that? Do you give it to both drivers if they both have the identical time, or do you give it to the driver who did it first?
It would go to the driver who did it first. Is generally how we allot that. Same thing that you would get for a qualifying session, for example. Whoever sets the time first does end up with the position. So it would be, at the moment, Verstappen who would get those fastest lap points. However, I don't think they're done yet. I don't think they're done setting the fastest laps. I think it's going to go down. Right now it's at a 1:33.410. Would not be surprised if it go a little bit farther. Back over to Tinko and Foch side by side. Tinko did make up the position here on Foch very recently within the last couple sectors of corners. You can see the leaderboard has not even updated yet, and you can see him flashing the lights there at Foch saying, yep, I'm now in front of you, come get me, as he's now got to chase down Bounty Barrier to get back up onto the podium. Tinko with an absolutely blazing race. Definitely some very risky but impressive moves from him on a couple cars, such as when he passed Giacomelli just a couple laps ago into the hairpin. But this is just the drive that Tinko needed to have, and he's got to be frustrated on it as well because, of course, he knows that this is the drive he's had in the middle of the pack. Could you have imagined, Jesse, if he had had this drive when he's up at the top of the pack out in P1? He would have been gone. We would have been calling him George Boothby Jr. today, but in P4, he stays 3 seconds back.
Yeah, unfortunately, no matter what the result, I don't think he's going to get back to the lead. So, regardless, it's going to be a day of what might have been, but a little bit of solace, perhaps a little bit of redemption if he can potentially get back onto the podium and stop the bleeding. Of course, he came in tied with the driver that you just saw earlier get that drive-through penalty for track limits. So, it's one of those things where still having a better, actually, no, that's Savalainen that was tied with him, so I completely digress. But Tinko making up a ton of spots on drivers anyway from 15th place in the championship standings today, regardless. But it could be a little bit of redemption to get back to 15th. By the way, you may have noticed there's a lot of time penalties on the board we haven't talked about. And actually, this solves a little mystery that I had. I knew the stewards were working on something for a very long time, and I now have the answer to what that was. That kerfuffle that we had at the lap one, where we saw the waved yellow off of the final turn. We actually picked up on that. That's what they were working on. And by the way,
To interrupt you really quick, Jesse Lee, drive through for the Kaiser for track limits, I believe that is. So adding one more to the list, that's going to shake up this battle for P10.
I hope nobody's playing that drinking game at home because they might miss the end of the race. But yes, that lap one kerfuffle, the end of lap one, 5-second penalty for car 229 for avoidable contact, 5-second penalty for the 27 for full throttle application after initial contact, 5-second penalty additionally for the 27 for avoidable contact, not holding brakes, causing the 18 to hit the wall. Racing incident between the 909 and the 329, unavoidable contact deemed in that incident. That is that taken care of. Further racing incident between the 16 and the 119. No further action between the 83 and the 41. No further action between the 488 and the 72. No further action between the 66 and the 6. Racing incident between the 41 and the 83. No further action between the 814 and the 41. So other than the lap one kerfuffle, the stewards have named it, they've let all the other contact go, Mike. What do you think of that?
I think that if the stewards, they really kind of figured out what caused the initial contact and then maybe who, wasn't necessarily respecting the actual incident being there, that's what they decided, and that's what they decided, right? We didn't really get a fantastic look at it all said and done because it was such a mess that it's going to be difficult to see from a TV camera versus, all the stewarding cameras that they have. So I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of them being, a little bit more lenient on those types of incidents where a lot of people probably just have nowhere to go. And as long as they're, giving the penalties where they need to be given, that's really what matters. And who has not yet gotten a penalty and has in fact picked up a couple more points on the last lap, Nico van der Velde, now with the purple lap.
Well, you were right. You thought the lap time could come down more. It certainly has. Tinko with the quickest lap, and that's really bad news for Valentin Berrier, who might be Tinko's last victim of the day and the final step of the podium. Going around the outside now as Tinko won't get the run here as the Porsche too strong on the inside. Berrier defensive driving, working an absolute treat here. And by the way, I love it when the stewards let minor contact go. There's no reason to penalize drivers for having little contacts. And everyone was told at the beginning of 2022 that they were probably going to let a lot of the minor stuff go. And they had been doing prior to that, but it sort of became official this year that minor stuff was going to be looked at like any other incident, but would likely be let go. And only the bigger, egregious things would accrue penalties. And I think they've called that consistently this year so far. in the month of January as well, and just a lot of no further actions and racing incidents. I absolutely love to see it. It doesn't throw off the natural flow of the race, and just being too harsh is unnecessary in my opinion anyway, but those are just my opinion. Sizex and Dubell going at it here for 13th place. Of course, Adam with the earlier penalties himself, trying to come back through the field a little bit. I feel like he has a little bit more pace than Sizek in front of him.
Well, the Kaiser, who was of course fighting earlier for a top spot, now has a stop and go 30, make an assumption that's likely for speeding in the pit lane, as he has already made his pit stop, and I do not see any penalty reports come out for him or any large incidents that have happened. He's going to continue to fall down the order. Not the only one that's gotten the stop and go 30 here for pit lane speeding today, and may not be the last one if we continue to see these drive-throughs rack up. 10 minutes to go, just ticked over. Lap 31 is the leader, Savalainen, 5.5 seconds, just about ahead of P2 of Verstappen, looking very strong for the lead, or for the win here today with Verstappen. 12 seconds ahead of Valentin Berrier. P1, P2 more or less locked in as long as they keep it steady over the next 10 minutes. But fights continue to happen up and down the field. We were just watching the Honda of Chris Sievert in P7 fight Giacomelli in P6. Here is the battle for the final podium spot, still ongoing. We know for a fact that Tinko van der Velde is faster than Valentin Berrier, but not significantly so, and that is playing into Valentin's favor at the moment, because the Porsches have been faster through Sector 1 and Sector 3,
dangerous.
where a lot of the passing opportunities are, but we see Berrier go wide there. Tinko's going to look to the outside as they come through turn 10 here. Not able to get it done, just not enough on the brakes in comparison to the Porsche. He's going to be deep in the slipstream, but not enough, actually, because he has to dip out so early. He got a better run out of the corner along the outside, but here it comes in through turn 11 and then into turn 12. They've got to get on the brakes. Who's going to be braver? It's once again going to be the Porsche, but he slides!
Oh,
the Porsche slides out! Berrier goes wide out of the corner into turn 13, and that's going to be done and dusted for Tinko van der Velde. Would not be surprised to see him gap Berrier now, but there is the slight mistake. Side by side into turn 12. So difficult to do. The Porsche perhaps struggling on tire wear here towards the end of the race. He suffers for it, slides out. Van der Velde promoted back up into the podium after getting taken out earlier in the race. By the way, Joe McCauley, his first race back in months here at RCI, or just racing in general, has not raced at all in absolute months, fighting at the back end of this pack here for P8 overall. He's in P11 in the plain Mike Jones Lexus RCF, and he is doing a fantastic job relearning how to drive here today. And up into P11, he's got to be pretty happy with himself, does he?
I'd be happy with himself too if I was Joe McCauley, because that's pretty much job done. Yeah, we mentioned at the beginning, people say sim racing, it's like riding a bike. You take time off, you come back. It's just like any other sport. Don't forget how to do it. You just got to tune up. And I think today has been an excellent tune-up for Joe McCauley. And if he can get this, which I think he's going to have an opportunity here in the final 7 minutes to finish top 10, that is the shot in the arm that Joe needs to get back into racing. Welcome back, young man. And welcome back to what potentially could be a top 10. Has some work to do here. Ostrich in front, who's battling Neto and Wolf Gruber. They're no slouches, and they've been fighting all race long. But McCauley has a shot here if he plays it very, very cool. Going back to Valentin Berrier for a moment, I just feel like he was driving so hard, was Berrier, trying to keep in front of Van der Velde there. And I just think the car gave up on him a little bit and slid out from under him. He was trying so hard, it wasn't to be. Tinko, the fastest man on the track, into third. It is a long way to second place, 10+ seconds. I just don't think it's going to happen. Max Payne has went off seemingly all by himself. Take a replay here and see exactly what happened to the GTR driver. Nope,
he got a drive-through for track limits and then went ahead and abandoned, basically.
Yeah, that is how you say in the business a rage quit.
Yeah, pretty much. That is basically what Max Payne did. He's not been having the best time here in his Nissan for split one of the championship, but we know that Max Payne loves that GTR and will drive as much as he can. And it's something to say that he even qualified into split one in the Nissan GTR. And you know, he's obviously been damn quick in that thing overall as the BOP has continued to be more favorable for the GT over time. Ooh, look at
Oh,
this.
watch out!
Ostrouch shoving it down the inside of Neto there, but a slight contact. He gets a little loose and has to abandon that move. This is going to be potentially Macaulay.
Oh,
Now,
look
the
at
Lexus
Joe.
is very quick in a straight line. He's going to try and come around the outside. The Lexus is better on the brakes than the McLaren slightly, but Joe not going to be brave enough to make the
Oh,
move.
look
No,
at
he is.
this.
Look at it. Look at the cutback coming into turn 13. He's going to go through the hairpin underneath him. Will he be able to get the legs out is the question. Into turn 15 now. The McLaren does slot back ahead,
Ooh.
but just barely. Joe, slight slide there as the McLaren cut him off ahead, and he has to get harder on the brakes coming into the final corner and has to slot back behind him. But you can see the cars behind, the BMW and the Merc, they didn't know what to do. They were sliding side to side ahead of him. The BMW and the Merc just had nothing to do. Alexander has to slot or stay in his position at P12, but Joe starting to gain more and more confidence through the race. He's looking very aggressive here. He smells at least P10, and that's a huge number for you. Now, if you're sitting at P11 and you know that you're quicker than P10, and you've got 4 minutes left in the race, you're gonna get hungry, and that's exactly where Joe is headed at the moment.
Well, Macaulay does have to keep an eye on Alexander behind because if he doesn't, he could easily be overtaken. Remember earlier, Samir Fosh, who's in the top five now, it wasn't always that way. He was busy battling Adam Dubell and others and got absolutely swamped by a couple of those drivers, even though we reckon he was just about the quickest driver in that group. So if it can happen to Fosh, it can absolutely happen to Macaulay. But I think all it's going to take, if he can stay as close as possible to the triple four, I think he might have him around this back straight area, but he's going to have to keep it close into sector one to be able to use the horsepower and the straight line ability of that Lexus. He's going to have another couple of opportunities. That's going to be just about it. Miguel Neto there working on this man, Wolf Gruber, trying to get the 8th place spot away. This is just in front of the battle we're talking about. In fact, you can still see the battle we were talking about in the background of this shot. If these two get side by side, that's going to get Ostrich and Macaulay up here, and they're down the inside. A little bit of a side swipe, another hit. They hit a third time. Does Wolf Gruber and Neto as they're continuing. Oh no, they're being taken off the track. Ostrich
Oh,
on the track. It's a melee. He comes back on the track, and he's going to have a major collision with the BMW. That's going to let Wolf Gruber and Macaulay through. Macaulay gets a couple of spots up to 9th place. Wolf Gruber in 8th. Alexander now in the top 10. Ostrich the big loser in that melee, and I just feel like that was ill-fated from the start, Mike Jones. Look at Macaulay go!
Yeah, up into P8 now. He did just slot ahead of Wolf Gruber. They're going to come onto the back straight where he's got the legs with that Lexus as well. Usually the Lexus so good down the straight, but he's got no slipstream. Well, let's watch a replay of what happens here. The slight contact between the BMW and the McLaren shoves the 444 off. He's got nowhere to go. If he turned, he would have just slid sideways regardless. If he slammed on the brakes, he would have slid forward regardless. The 444 with nowhere to go has to just smash into the side of the car. Dubiel, big slide coming in through turn 12, consistently happening for all these cars pushing so hard here on old tires at the end of the race. Big slides coming in through turn 12. The 444 not going to be happy with that. Very curious to see what the stewards think of it in the end, but it's something that is going to continue to happen here through the back half of this race. Drivers stacked up here so far. The 444 trying to go defensive, but it was too late. The 840 already had the nose under him. He had to abandon it, and coming into turn 1, Dubiel picks up the position on Ostrauch up into P11. The leader is straight behind him here. He's now on the final lap as well. This is 2 more laps for these guys here at Misano. About 3 minutes to go overall on the race, and it is not dying down. Action from all hours of the track. as we race into the night here in Italy.
Flag to flag action occurring here on the track. I said that I thought that Ostrich was the biggest loser in that melee, and it would have been had Neto not got by the triple four. Neto actually ended up being last in that train after all of that, but now has gotten back in front of Ostrich in the triple four. So Ostrich having what could have been a better day turn out to be a little bit sour here in the final moments. Not sour for Joe McCauley, who drove all the way up to 8th place. If he could hold on to this, how brilliant would that be? Jack Alexander now defending Adam Dubiel, who's had an adventure of a day, you have to say it, for the 840 Ferrari, but not quite done here. Alexander trying to defend the top 10. Dubiel trying to get a top 10 recovery drive here for the 840, and a shot at a top 10 for Alexander. It's going to come down to it here. Last lap, white flag for these drivers.
Ooh. Yeah, diving out to the outside here. So look at him slide again. The 840 is just losing traction everywhere. No, it won't, because he got off the throttle just enough. I don't, unless the stewards give him a penalty for that, that will not be a penalty from the game there. Neto, of course, has that drive-through behind. He does not have to worry about the BMW behind him. He only needs to worry about the car in front. However, the man of the race today, Tinko Vanderbilt, set back to P11 with an incident following, with Caracas coming to the hairpin. Savalainen took over the lead and has not relented since then. Coming around the final corner, here comes Jonas Savalainen. His Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo number 100 is going to take the lead. Getting slower every day did not happen today for Streppen and his Bentley, the 747 NSN racing team, gonna take P2. Tinko Vanderbilt as well in P3. The beautiful, beautiful recovery drive for the Williams eSport number 66. Coming across in the final podium spot, Berrier, who had such a fight the entire race, never left alone ever during the first 55 minutes of this race in P4. There's Foch, there's Giacomelli, there's Sievert, and Joe McCauley with the return race. 7 months of not racing, coming around the final corner. He's going to finish in P8 in the 188. The Scottish driver going to be very, very happy with his performance here today. Beautiful racing from him there at the end to work around the incidents that were happening around him. Wolf Gruber, Alexander, and Dubiel going to finish. Dubiel with the slight, a 10th back on Alexander, not able to get it done. Neto, he's going to continue to fall as the results come in with the 30-second penalty. That is because of the unserved drive-through that he received at the end of the race. Ostrach, Sizak, here comes Wajna across the line with Zampiri right behind him. Klime's going to come across next with a 15-second penalty. He'll drop a couple positions. Martin Grady, Jesse Lee, all the way going to finish in P17 once this cycles out, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe P16. Let's see what happens with Neto. Yeah, P17 for him by 4 seconds. Just not a great drive for Martin Grady today, but in the end, he was not confident coming in. Tinko Vanderbilt ended up with the purple lap as well. The Mercedes really showing strength here at Misano. Yassi not showing up. Savalainen, Vanderbilt, and Verstappen showing up to play.
The final results of the race confirmed. Savalainen, your winner. Verstappen, Tinko Vandervelde, your podium today. And the question now becomes, who is the championship points leader? For my money and my math, it's Berrier or Samir Foch. And I don't know which one it is because I haven't had the time to do the maths, but it is probably one of those two drivers that we will see next week. I have a feeling it might be Berrier as well, but we'll see next week just what it's going to be for them. There's going to be a lot of questions from the drivers leading into next week as well. Questions about others and questions about themselves as well. And today was an absolute drama-filled day that saw the third place driver of Savalainen end up being the winner by virtue of doing my favorite thing, keeping it clean on the racetrack. Mike Jones, I heard you're over there ready for an interview.
I am. So one of the Jardia community team drivers, Wolf Gruber, joining us for a brief interview here in the box. Wolf, that was scrappy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I tried to keep it clean right there at the end. We were three right going into the third corner, I think, and I didn't see him on my radar anymore. I thought he backed out, and suddenly he came from the right off track, and I was like, "What the hell was going on?" And I just tried to back off and survive somehow. That's incident, but yeah. Otherwise, I didn't change tires, which gained me a bit of time in the pits, which led me out in front of Severa, I think. But he was just too quick. And after that, I just dropped off massively on pace and I couldn't keep up with anymore. And I was just focusing on defending.
Yeah, so the McLarens definitely look like they were quick going into the race today, but through the middle of the race into the end, I mean, you guys look like you were definitely struggling with tires where Sever and the Ferraris just kept picking up pace. So I mean, is that kind of what you felt like out of the track? Because that's what it felt like from here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I practice, I saw that after 30 minutes, the tires just aren't at the best anymore. And I've decided still not to change tires, just to gain that extra more time, and decided already in up ahead that I was going to focus on defending and see where that gets me. And I'm finished in the top 10, which I'm really happy about and exhausted.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure that every driver in this race might be a little exhausted now because that was just scrappy at the end, yes, but it was scrappy all race long. And of course, you came into this race P11 in the championship with the pretty good finish today, and the couple drivers out ahead of you that aren't here. Of course, your man Jardier not in the race today, as well as his Yasi teammates as they are ill or driving in another race. So you should pick up a couple positions today. I mean, are you relatively confident going into the rest of the races that you can potentially look at a top 10, or how what are you thinking about the rest of the calendar?
Uh, goal from the beginning was to finish in the top 10 point in the points every race. So I'm fairly confident with enough practice. I can definitely achieve that. And yeah, I mean, they've improved that I'm capable. Last week I finished in the top 10 as well. I'm fairly confident that I'll be able to finish in the top 10 every race.
Well, that's what you like to hear, Jesse Lee, a man of confidence coming into the next few races. Of course, Monza, the next one, and then we finish Zolder, Snetterton, then Imola. A nice little tour of Italy here through the back half of the season. I'm going to switch gears here very briefly on you, Wolf Gruber. Obviously, we've got the World Tour coming up. You're taking part in one of the Jardia community teams here. How are you guys looking like coming into the World Tour? Because obviously qualifying 8 days away for the first race.
Proud of the guys in my team with Stu and Mike Williams and Justin Hooley. We are sitting in P4, I think, the last time I checked earlier today. The quali standings. We finished our laps already, and I guess we'll just see. We are hoping to get in the top 22, and we are really looking forward to it. The car is strong. We picked the Aston for that car, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Wolf, I've got one question for you. It's been on my mind since about the halfway point of the race. We know that a lot of the Jardy community team drivers, they communicate mid-race, they're in the same chat. What was it like in the middle of that race when a lot of you were racing against each other and around each other? What kind of communication was taking place?
For me, none. I just kept to myself today. I wasn't in any server, just to get the concentration down, which I
Hey,
needed.
you said look like you needed it.
Yeah. And yeah, it was just it isn't on my mind, to be honest. When I mean I'm seeing for example Valentine or Max Whitener. They're just another competitor on the track, and don't look at the community they belong to. I'm just seeing them as another race driver. That's how I'm going to behave against them.
That might be the single most professional answer we've ever had during a driver interview,
And
Wolf.
so
Well
usually we
done.
get like Boothby or Malinowski or Jardier in here, and they're just trolling.
Can I do I'm gonna do a George Boothby impression real quick. I don't know, man. I just winged it. I just went in there and I drove.
That sounds
That's
about
my
right.
George Boothby impression. Wolf, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you and congratulations on an excellent result today.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Well,
Jesse, that was round three of the
yeah.
Friday championship here. It doesn't feel like that feels like it was about 3 rounds in one, but that was only round three. 4 races to
Yep.
go. Next week, we are staying in Italy for Monza. And I think that that's going to be a brilliant race as well. It was so close today, and the spread of cars that we have across the top of the field so far in this championship is beautiful to see. Not one manufacturer dominating, unless your name is George Boothby and you're on one of the cars. But he should be back next week. I'm very curious to see how the rest of the points shake out for the remainder of the season with him.
It is going to be very interesting indeed. Of course, we have many more races going on. And of course, tomorrow night, catch Night Owl for round three. Myself and I believe Nate's joining me with that, Stewie, on the broadcast. And of course, you can catch the Euro Masters Championship on Monday with the Ryan and Ryan show. Stewie on the broadcast for that as well. The Diamond Drive Cup, season three, I think it is, starts up this coming Wednesday. Myself and Nate with Jake the Bosmeister Boswell on that broadcast. Thursday, GT4s with myself, Tim Peck, and Christian Stricker on that cast. And of course, Mike Jones, myself, and Stewie will be with you back here next Friday for round four. Heard Mike say we're keeping it in Italy. Absolute chaos today, and certainly, probably a lot of fallout because of today. Stewards, I'm being told, are still working on some penalties that came in really late. We'll sort it all out for you in 1 week's time. Folks, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting you tonight. We hope that you have a great night. And before we go, just want to say a big thank you to all of our partners, racedepartment.com, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and simracing.gp for everything they do for us. You can get 25% off your driver coaching by going to driver61.com. Code in the description. Several of our members of staff here have used Driver 61 for driver coaching, and I can truly say from firsthand experience it has made Mike Jones a faster driver. Thanks for the trophy, buddy, by the way. And also, of course, Fanatec, you can use our affiliate link over at fanatec.com. It doesn't cost you a single thing, and it may help us with things like server cost in the future. Thank you to all of you for being with us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night for Night Owl, and we'll see you next week for more Friday action. Until then, have a good night.